Well, believe it or not, midterms are hot on our heels, actually, coming right on up. And there's a lot of interesting candidates that are popping up on the scene. One candidate that I'd like to introduce you guys to is Rob Lucero for California's 34th district, which covers, we have a map here, a bit of Los Angeles. It's a Los Angeles district, mostly covering part of downtown, some of East LA, it looks like, a bit north of downtown and into even inching its way into like West Hollywood and that area of Los Angeles. If you guys kind of see this map here, Rob is running. What's interesting about Rob and why I wanted to bring him on the show is because he's running as a Democrat, but he's a Maha or Kennedy Democrat, which is interesting because what we saw with Kennedy was him flipping from Democrat to Republican. I was actually one of the people, I think I was the first person to tell him, I don't know why you're running as a Democrat and you probably shouldn't do this. And you should probably run as a Republican. It would be better for you. And he ultimately obviously did switch over and he partnered up with, I don't know if he switched his registration, but he certainly switched his affiliation and obviously is in the Trump administration. Rob is similar, moving from Republican over to Democrat, but having an interesting platform of one of anti-war, one of the Maha movement. This is a new trend that perhaps Democrats are even embracing. Time magazine just recently came out with an article just 3 days ago. Republicans have a Maha problem. Democrats see an opportunity. So are we starting to see Democrats embrace the Maha movement? Are we going to see Democrats embracing even an anti-war movement? Perhaps. Rob Lucero, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kim. Great to be on.
Okay. Tell me, first of all, why did you switch? Tell us about your party switching.
Sure.
And why you've done party switching.
Sure, absolutely. So my first presidential election was 1992, and I voted for Ross Perot. I kind of had an independent way of thinking. A friend of mine at the time said, "Why are you voting for Ross Perot? Why don't you vote for Clinton? You're throwing away your vote," right? That was the line back then. So from an early age, I've had an independent streak. And I think you have to look back to 2015 when Trump came down the escalator and then the whole 2015 to 2016 primary process and election unfolded. Trump trounced 15 other Republicans who were trying to get that initial nomination. Trounced. It wasn't even close, right? Millions of dollars were spent to try to save Bush and other people, right? Establishment Republicans trounced them all. And then Bernie Sanders almost upset the apple cart on the Democratic side with the DNC. So the fact is, we have to there's a lot of amnesia, right, in politics. People's attention span is so short. You talk about the last 10 years, you're like, well, you want to go way back, huh? You know, I'm somebody who likes to talk about the 60s and the New Deal. So I'm actually cutting it down to the last 10 years, right? The fact is, there's been all kinds of back and forth. You know, in the 1930s, you had communists and socialists and fascists, switching parties all the time back then. Those aren't necessarily good examples. But when you have a time of crisis, parties are falling apart. The Republican Party is a shell of itself. The Democratic Party is almost unrecognizable. Yeah. So for most of my adult life, I've been struggling within the Democratic Party to revive that Kennedy FDR tradition. And I think Republicans, there's some moderate Republicans who can be recruited to that too, on public works, on infrastructure, things like that.
I mean, in a state like California, you almost have to, especially the district you're running in, I think you have to be a Democrat. I don't know if there's any way around that. Are there any Republicans that have won any of the districts in LA at all? Maybe.
No, not in the city. So as you said, my district is central LA, right? Downtown, City Hall. It goes west to Koreatown, which is a very conservative, business-oriented community, family-oriented community. And even with that, and a lot of Latinos are actually a little more conservative than people might think, family-oriented, et cetera. But yeah, Republicans can't win here. In fact, without telling you some of the names, I've met with some very high-level Republicans that are California Republicans, nationwide leaders, and they understand why I'm running as a Democrat, and they're actually happy that somebody's running in this district that is going to be a Democratic district. In fact, I had somebody who said, well, I support the incumbent. I said, well, look, if I beat him, are you going to set up a political action committee to get rid of me? He goes, oh, no, I just want a Democratic vote there. So even the Democrats are just like, well, the incumbent fills the box. That's all we need. I just think LA could do a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the country, certainly the Democratic Party could do better. And I don't think people care about party loyalty anymore like they used to. I mean, look at Donald Trump, right? He was a Democrat, independent. Now he's a Republican president.
Right.
And same with Kennedy. I mean, people don't care that the Republicans don't care at all that he was a
Yeah.
Democrat,
Yeah.
and now he's in a Republican administration. People just don't care. So I think people, the establishment is obviously crumbling in both parties.
Yeah.
Democrats are slower to this, though. I mean, we
Yeah.
saw Donald Trump was able to dismantle the Republican Party, and now we're seeing it reshaped. And it is in chaos. I mean, there's definitely
Hmm.
a lot of infighting, which I love to see because they actually do infight, unlike Democrats, right?
Hmm.
Democrats are like, you fall in line or you're not one of us. And
Yeah.
Republicans will actually battle it out with each other and fight to the fight to
Yeah.
the death with each other. And we see these big splits. Like right now with Israel is a giant split within the Republican Party. We've seen various different splits with them. But Democrats, they seem slower. And there's even chatter of like Gavin Newsom being the next nominee. Apparently he's next in line because Democrats anoint people. They don't
Yeah.
actually have elections.
Right.
But I think the voters, like you mentioned with Bernie Sanders, in the fuel behind Bernie, the voters are ready for something different. The voters are sick of this. And as long as the Democrats continue holding on to this, like we anoint rather than actually have votes and let the people speak,
Yeah.
they're going to continue to fail.
Yeah.
But, maybe candidates like yourself can reinvigorate the Democratic Party a bit. But I do worry. I mean, do you not worry? See, with Republicans, they don't seem to care as much about party loyalty, but Democrats do a bit. At least the
Hmm.
establishment does. And they'll
Hmm.
hold it against you that you were a Republican like yesterday.
Right.
I mean, when did you switch? You just barely switched. Yeah.
Well, funny enough, so I announced that I was running for U.S. Senate. This was a real crazy idea in 2021. I was running for U.S. Senate in the election that Alex Padilla was running to win his first time. He was appointed by Gavin Newsom to be the senator when Kamala joined the ticket. So I actually announced at that time that I wanted to be part of a process within the Democratic Party to have a campaign. And now that he's no longer with us, I had actually called an old friend of mine, the former chair of the state party, Eric Bauman, the late Eric Bauman. He said, "Look, if you do that, if you run in the Democratic Party, you're going to get 2% of the vote, and they're never going to support you again. They're never going to let you run for anything else again." And that's the way they treat people here, right? There's no democratic process. So I decided to fight it out for a little bit. And then I started talking to some of the Republican Party leadership in the state of California, they were also themselves in a bigger crisis, right? The Republican Party statewide has not very much power. They hold no offices.
Yeah.
I was running, so I decided to run in that very crowded field for Senate. They wanted to run me for Secretary of State because they liked me. But then they said, well, our bylaws prevent us from supporting you because you've only been a Republican for like 8 months. And our bylaws say you got to be, a candidate for a year or a member. I campaigned with Nathan Hochman, a great candidate who had no chance of winning in a statewide race against Ron Bonta for Attorney General, right? But then he became our DA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and in that race, of course, with the DA race, you find there are a lot more moderate voters here if you give them something to vote for. Even in San Francisco, they've had some moderate people win. So I think it's a great time to have this fight out in the open. As I've said, as Bobby himself had said, the Democratic Party, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. They're leaving too much of us out, hanging out to dry with no real voice. And I actually found a bigger tent at that time, in the Republican Party. I made it clear I wasn't MAGA. I wasn't MAGA. But again, I think 20% of the country might be MAGA, maybe 15%, and then 15% of the country's woke. The big middle of 60 to 70% of our people just want normalcy, right?
Right. The issue is whether or not the Democratic Party will let you. Do you think they've learned any lessons? Because with Kennedy, when I told him, had him on the show a few times and straight up told him, like, Democratic Party doesn't like you. I don't know why you're running as a Democrat. You shouldn't run as a Democrat. You should run as a Republican. Just definitely not as a Democrat.
Yeah.
And he was like, Kim, I'm a Kennedy. I've always been a Democrat. I mean, it basically was his reaction to this, right? Ultimately, he did change his mind, obviously.
Sure.
But that's because the Democratic Party was just so awful to him. I mean, they really were awful. Do you think they've learned any lesson at all? I mean, I would hope that they have, and they've realized they can't. They need to go back to actual democracy and stop this phony stuff that they're doing?
Yeah, I
Do you
don't think
think
they
that
have.
you don't think they have? Okay.
I don't think they
Okay.
have, and I'm just going to assume they haven't. And that part of my job is to teach them. So, for example, right now, I'm hoping to recruit people to the future because I think the Mamdani situation in New York City is the high watermark of this DSA movement. He's going to win,
Yeah.
barring some terrible intervention. He's going to win.
Right.
Because he's created what I'm calling Pied Piper politics. He's created a movement that you just can't stop.
Right. Right.
I'm hoping that I can create that kind of situation in Los Angeles where mainly what he did is he woke up a sleeping giant, New York City.
Yeah.
The people who don't feel represented, you can't blame any of these people, frankly, for what they're going along with at this point.
Right.
I'd like to have that kind of movement and conversation here. So in my case, I tell people, look, when I win this election next year to represent the 34th district, I'll be the first representative that's actually from here, that grew up here, is multi-generational from central LA. I'll be the first one representing this place in DC in the House of Representatives since 1993. Somebody who's actually from here.
Where's
So
Jimmy Gomez from? The guy.
he grew up in Riverside, and his background is a little nebulous as far as Mexico and when they came over, whatever. Fine, but he grew up in Riverside. And then Becerra, who was the incumbent before him, grew up in Sacramento and went to law school at Stanford.
Okay.
Great, all fine, but they're part of the Democratic Party machine, right?
Uh-huh.
I've had meetings with leaders. I was an official staff member of the California Democratic Party 2008. I'm not an outsider to the Democratic Party. I've been a leader in the Democratic Party, frankly, statewide, at different times. But I was told
they kicked you out, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I was told a few years ago.
Like Kennedy.
Yeah, I was told a few years ago, look, so-and-so is going to go here, so-and-so is going to go there. Term limits actually creates a big problem for us, believe it or not, because what they do is people get termed out in the state Senate. Then they say, well, now they're going to be the supervisor, and we're just going to have a coronation. That's what's happening right now in my district with, again, not the worst people, but there's no democratic process.
Right, right. I mean, that's the big problem with the Democratic Party right now. Absolutely no democracy.
Right.
So let's talk about what you're running on, because I think you're right. There is definitely an appetite within the Democratic Party. Democrats go along. I think the average voter goes along with what the Democrats want because the average voter doesn't want to vote Republican. They don't want to go to the Republican side. So they're only left with this other option they feel like. And they're just like, well, I guess. And Democrats rely on that. They've just been force feeding people anointed candidates because they know that, who else are they going to vote for? It's either us or nobody. And so they go with that. But people are starting to wake up, I think, and they're starting to say, you know what, actually, I don't need to be so partisan. I mean, we saw that with the Maha movement, a lot of them moving on, voting Republican and electing Donald Trump. A lot of Democrats, tons of Democrats did that. So let's talk about your policies. What makes you different from the current guy? First of all, let's start with homelessness. Does your area, is this Skid Row?
Oh, yeah. So I live in Eagle Rock, which is the top of the district, and then it goes down through all of Northeast LA to East LA, as you mentioned, and then it goes through downtown, City Hall, Union Station, and it goes all the way to 7th Street, which is the southern border of Skid Row proper. And then it goes west to Pico Union and MacArthur Park, which we can talk about, and then it goes to Koreatown, all the way to Crenshaw Boulevard. So it does not go into West Hollywood necessarily, but it's Crenshaw going up to Beverly and
going
then back.
Towards that direction.
Yeah, going towards that.
This is just for people that don't know LA.
Yeah.
It's always difficult explaining LA to people. People are like, so where is LA? How big is LA? I was like, there's actually not really an LA. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it because it's like,
right.
When we say LA, Los Angelinos, what we mean really is the county, right? That's kind of what we actually mean.
Yeah.
And then the city, like, where's the city? I don't know. It's because you've got all these incorporated mini cities and then these like non-incorporated cities that, like Venice Beach, for example, where I lived for many years, is technically Los Angeles City, but but the address is Venice, even though because it's not incorporated, but Santa Monica is incorporated, right? So it's like right next door. So what your district includes Skid Row, just so people know, I'm just going to say things people know. So Skid Row, like this is in half of downtown Los Angeles or most of downtown Los Angeles, which includes Skid Row, Dodger Stadium, you would be in, that would be part of your district, right? Moving over, like you said, west toward Beverly Hills, toward West Hollywood, but really encompassing Koreatown.
Wilshire Boulevard, a lot of Wilshire Boulevard.
Wilshire's really big, right? So I mean, Wilshire. When people think Wilshire, they think Beverly Hills.
Yeah. So the park coming out of, the old park coming out of downtown. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That older area. So a lot of like we'd say downtown and around downtown for people to kind of
Right.
understand, and then
The heart
heading
of
north.
LA.
The heart of it, yeah. And I think all of this is actual city of LA. Is
No,
it, or
yeah,
is any
it
of it
is.
incorporated?
It's all city of
Okay,
LA. Yeah.
it is all city of LA.
hmm
Okay, so let's talk about homelessness. Skid
hmm
Row, downtown is, quite frankly, lack of a
Yeah.
better word, it is shit.
Yeah.
And there was a period of time it was kind of building up. And then, they put all these new buildings and it was like, oh yeah, everybody wants to live on 6th and Spring. And it was like really cool or
hmm
grand or whatever. And then there's still some nice areas, but it's like gotten worse driving through with downtown. What do
hmm
you think the solution should be for homelessness? I mean, what can you do and then what do you even do in Congress about it? Like you'd be all the way in Washington.
Well, there's a lot of egg on the face of Congress right now because in the summer of 2024 during the election, and I think this is why it got kind of overlooked by a lot of people. The Supreme Court ruled that they overturned Boise, that cities can actually remove the encampments. Okay, they can enforce the law. So that's the Supreme Court. I'm trying to get my finger in there. The Supreme Court. And then the executive branch this past summer, July 24th, issued the executive order ending crime and disorder on America's streets. And it tasked the Attorney General, the Housing and Urban Development Secretary, and the HHS Secretary with dealing with the crime problem on the streets, the drug addiction problem on the streets, the mental health emergency. And so for the first time, you had the presidency, the office of the president. If you don't like Trump, the presidency issue a statement saying we have a national crisis around mental health, drug addiction on the streets, homelessness, right? So
Hmm.
those two branches of our three branches of government have acted. Where's the Congress? The
Hmm.
Congress can come in and say, look, we see the president calling for this action. We raise the president some funding to make sure it gets done. So what does it look like? It looks like a new deal. I'm actually advocating a Civilian Conservation Corps WPA type project to get a lot of young people out there. Even promise them if they do it for 2 or 3 years, you'll get the some version of a GI Bill benefit to go to school or retire some of your school debt if you already went to school. Maybe help you buy a home. Those kinds of things that we did for war veterans. Nobody wants a new world war. Let's give them those benefits for actually helping to clean up some of our biggest urban messes, right? Which
Yeah.
LA
Okay.
being, okay. And
Right. So you're
whether you,
saying, like,
go ahead.
rather than having to go serve in a war, sign
Yeah.
up for the military and serve in the war, you can sign up domestically
hmm
and work on domestic issues,
Yeah. Yeah.
homelessness being one, and help clean up this crisis.
Yeah. And centered
And
around infrastructure,
okay.
which is hard infrastructure, which can require skilled labor, which the unions can be involved in and scale up union employment. We have an infrastructure bill that's in Congress now for a new infrastructure bank that will be investment, not more spending, but actual investment with public credit. So it will go around this crazy spending nightmare that the Congress is fighting like children over right now and actually say we're going to invest over the next 5 to 10 years. People keep criticizing China, but China is actually investing in the next 10, 20, 30 years of their actual economy and even investing in the global south and saying we're
Yeah.
going to build rail lines that should have been built, decades ago, right? That's the kind of stuff we used to do.
Right. That makes sense to me, rather than like having some sort of like a national force rather
hmm
than a military force that goes around the world,
hmm
having a national force that people can sign up for that. And I think Americans, the way they would think about that, if it's like, oh, I joined the national force, and people are like, oh, that's so great, and you're going to serve how many years? Like, it's 2 or 3 or 4 years or whatever. And then they go and they get deployed essentially to American cities where
hmm
they do a variety of home building projects. I
hmm
think Americans would be more likely to even allow for government spending on these infrastructure
Yeah.
projects and on these,
It,
cleanup
yeah.
crisis
Yeah.
projects.
It also is an ownership issue. See, part of the problem, I can do this in my district. I mentioned being multi-generational here. My generation is fifth generation. My kids are sixth in this district. So I can talk about the Great Depression and how two of my great grandfathers worked in WPA projects building the freeways and the flood control system here in LA.
Yeah.
So whatever and these guys were very humble. I had the privilege of knowing them when I was a kid. They didn't brag, but if you asked them, they could point to the freeway and say, "Well, I helped lay concrete over there. I helped build that. That's me. That's mine." And they would also be people that would never put graffiti on it. They would never
Yeah.
deface it. They would have a certain pride, like that's my own. I own that, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of the problem we have is that young people, in particular, and I would say young men, are the source of a lot of our problems with this. They don't have actual ownership. We have a whole policy that I won't get into in detail, but it's on my website on community banking. We need a lot more local banking going on, supported by infrastructure banking, some banking reform. But how many community banks do we have anymore that know the business people that are there?
Yeah. And that's one way to fight kind of that. I mean, how do you feel about things like the WEF and kind of the globalist
Oh yeah,
agenda
yeah,
of
yeah. No,
big
that's
banks
terrible.
and debanking and all of this?
Yeah, no, it's the agenda there. In fact, they have homelessness wrapped in there in this idea that, well, this is a part of the new urban landscape. These are the new communities we're going to have, whether it's in Mumbai or Los Angeles. It's all the same, right? So and I'm glad China and the BRICS process is ignoring that and saying, no, we actually want clean water, power, nuclear power, infrastructure, bridges. You probably heard, China has these construction armies. They go in there and they build. And I mention this because that's what we used to do. That's what the Hoover Dam was. The Hoover Dam was a construction army started by Republicans under Hoover and finished by FDR. So we've done these things before. We built the Bay Bridges, the Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge within 2 years, under budget, ahead of schedule. We can do those things again.
Right, right. Let's talk about your policy of stop endless wars and usher in peace. I mean, that would probably help with the national force, right? If we could repurpose military personnel and the funds away from wars and towards national building and a national army, a national building army.
Yeah.
What is your take on the endless wars? What is the issue that you see?
Well, it comes out of the end of the Cold War and the whole New World Order, as you mentioned, the World Economic Forum, the idea that there's going to be one governing oligarchy, and not the oligarchy that Bernie Sanders and AOC were talking about. There's actually a real global financial oligarchy, mostly out of the city of London, not out of Israel primarily, but out of the city of London, whose view is, we own the currencies. We set the price of oil every morning. We set the price of raw materials and precious metals. We've been doing this for centuries, and so they're happy with the Middle East blowing up and other places blowing up because they're sitting back saying, well, we can handle a world of 2 billion people, 1 billion people. We don't mind that because we're going to have the resources for, the Tea Party set. This is the same thing with the Middle East. I mean, Yitzhak Rabin, Shimon Peres, they came to an agreement with Arafat and created the Oslo Accords, historic Oslo Accords, that were totally blown up by the Likud movement that Netanyahu represents.
They literally killed the guy.
It's a closed case. Absolutely. Absolutely.
They literally killed Rabin after that.
Yeah. And the Oslo Accords had in there a lot of economic development proposals. I went to Singapore recently on a consulting job, and I couldn't believe it because Singapore in 1965 was a third world country, right? An abandoned third world country. And they said by the year 2000, we're going to have a standard of living like Northern Europe. And they do. So there could be a port of Gaza that has that. There could be, massive economic development there, but only if the United States insists that it happen. We have to lead on that, not to build a new country club for Mr. Trump. I'm sorry to inform him, but to actually build something of for and by the Palestinians and the Israelis working together.
Should we even be building that?
Well, when I say we, I mean mankind. I don't know who's going to be involved in it, but we got to make sure there's a peace process there. And this just has to stop. I mean, it's out of control. And look, people don't want to call it a genocide. There are genocidalists in the cabinet, in the Israeli government, who are open about wanting genocide there. So that's the problem.
Right.
Right.
Right. And the fact that they're doing it. So, I mean, you mix the two together, and then what does that mean, right?
I have to tell you, did you know, can I tell you, I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but did you know that the incumbent in my district, he almost lost his seat in 2022. If 550 votes had switched, he would have lost the seat to a Democratic Socialist candidate running in this district. We would have had a DSA candidate in the U.S. Congress. So AIPAC came in last cycle in 2024, and Jimmy Gomez had previously campaigned on, I don't take any corporate money. I don't take any corporate money. They've spent almost $3 million on this guy over the last 3 years. So, and you know this part of LA. This is not the West Side. It's not the Upper West Side either. It's so why is AIPAC spending so much money here?
Yeah, why? I mean, just to be able to buy one more congressperson.
I think
to make sure that they vote the way that they should. Because you're right, that area of LA, I don't know if like a single Jew lives in that area. To be honest with you, okay, downtown.
There's some,
that's not true. There's very, very few. But it's not like the neighborhoods. No, or the neighborhood I live in, which
Yeah.
is, I mean, pretty much all not I mean, it's massively Jewish, and
Hmm.
not only that, but Israeli. You know, a lot of them are
Right.
Israeli immigrants that have moved into Tarzana and Encino in that area.
Yeah.
But even then, you know, that's crazy that AIPAC would spend that kind of
Yeah.
money in that district
And
just
here's the
to,
kicker:
yeah.
he was also endorsed last cycle by AOC. So it's like, are you AOC or are you APAC? You can't be both.
Why
He's in a
would she
pickle.
endorse him? Why did she not endorse the DSA person?
I think they made a decision. I don't know. They made a decision to pull the plug on that.
Well, I don't trust her, that's for sure. Which is why I think she's gonna be the next Democrat president, unfortunately. I think that she's in line to win a nomination because they've got her, in their clutches, and, but she still has kind of that movementy kind of,
Yeah,
fire that Bernie or Mamdani have,
yeah.
kinda they're kind of gonna capitalize on that with her, I think. But, so how do you think that's going to affect you? I mean, obviously, you don't sound like you're gonna be the one taking AIPAC money.
No. We'll see. I mean, look, the way I'm going to win this is a really good old fashioned in the streets campaign. So we're going to do a lot. I don't want to reveal too much about strategy, but we're going to recruit a district that has a low voter turnout, and the Democratic Party knows that and takes advantage of that. So they go to places like where I live. Of course, I live in Eagle Rock, but I graduated from Eagle Rock High School.
Mhm.
This is my community. Uh, the incumbent also lives in this neighborhood, but I grew up here. He didn't. These neighborhoods are mine. There's about 6 neighborhoods that my family's from and lived in. So I'm going to recruit in these neighborhoods. It's almost like a favorite son campaign, and I think we're just going to have a lot of fun with that this year. And I'm a bit combative, so I don't mind that. I worked for Bobby at a high level, and I'll deal with that and talk about that. I did not vote for Trump. I actually voted for Bobby in California. He was on our ballot. I was an elector for him, so I could say I had to vote for him. And if he had won the election somehow miraculously in California, I would have been one of his electors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you think the attitude of the voters have shifted? Like, what do you think would be the number one appeal to the people in your district, Democratic voters in your district? What do you think they need to hear
Yeah.
that would make them say, you're the guy? So that kind of gives you that Mamdani or
Mm-hmm.
even Trump or
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Kennedy, that gives you that. What is the one thing you think they need to hear?
That we're going to take the district back for us. I mean, this district has just been a plaything of the statewide Democratic Party and the National Democratic Party for too long. And
Mhm.
so, for example, there was a recent town hall this summer where the incumbent was there, and they were like, "Oh, rah rah, anti-Trump, and rah rah, we hate ICE." And then after all that got out for 15 minutes of a rally, people started asking him, "Well, what about the streets? The streets are dirty. We got homeless people. We don't feel safe. It's not a safe business environment." And every one of those questions from the report that I got was he said those are local issues. That your city council has to deal with that. He essentially said what I would never say, because what I would say is, look, what zip code are you talking about? What neighborhood are you in? Okay, I know that council member. I'm going to talk to them and see what they need from my office to make sure we
Right.
start to solve those problems, because it is my
Right.
problem. The thing about Congress is we have the power of the power of the purse. And so everywhere you turn, people say, well, we spent all this money. We don't have any more money. We don't know where the money went. All kinds of things like that are being said about everything, including homelessness. Um, they just recently started saying there's a new initiative in the city to put Band-Aids, I kid you not, literally big Band-Aids on sidewalks where there are boo-boos, cracks in the sidewalks, instead of fixing them, right? Or we're going to have street
Okay.
medicine for the homeless, where we take people from USC Medical and send them out there to the streets and to riverbeds to treat people where they are and then leave them there. This is supposed to be
Yeah.
some great breakthrough.
Right.
So, as a member of Congress, I can say, look, this is an emergency, as the president said. You may not like him, but he's the president of the United States. He declared it an emergency. I think we need emergency action. Because, Kim, that's one of the things that bugs me about California is we say, oh, there's a fire emergency. There's a water emergency. There's a public safety emergency. There's a police force emergency. Where are the emergency actions being taken by any
Mhm.
level of government to deal with this?
Mhm. Well, I hope I wish you luck. You sound like a great candidate. I'll certainly be championing you. I like anybody who's going to say. I mean, I'm kind of now a one voter issue. which is to me AIPAC. Like you just cannot take AIPAC or any sort of foreign lobbying
Yeah.
influence money. And the
Yeah.
reason that is, I mean, we're not able to focus on our own stuff. We've got Congress right now focused
Right.
on a foreign country that's a tiny little foreign country bossing us around. It's shameful. It's embarrassing. We
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing this. And we can't even squabble about the issues that we have here at home because we're too focused on foreign policy and
Hmm.
particularly the foreign policy of one tiny country. We're not even paying attention to, the bigger, what we always say, oh, China's our big rival or Russia, it's like, and what do we even, we're just paying so much attention and doing whatever Netanyahu wants. So
Mm.
my big, this time around, I won't even consider a candidate if they're going to take AIPAC money. They're just
Hmm.
off. That's like an automatic. And then after that, it's okay. What are your other issues? What
Right.
do you stand for beyond that? If there's more than that choice, but oftentimes we're not left with any other choices, and we're
Yeah.
left with very few choices because there's very few people who will say, "I won't take that kind of money."
Yeah.
So where do you stand on that?
Oh, I won't take that money, and I don't think it's
Okay.
going to be offered to me since they've pretty much bought and paid for the incumbent. So we'll
And
be
I think
okay.
for your district, you should be able to just say that loud and proud, right? And your
Yeah.
district would be like, "Okay, great." Like, I don't know if that's gonna affect anybody. I mean, where I live in LA, okay, I could understand people being like, "Well, then forget it. We're not voting for you." And I'd understand actually a congressional, you have to represent the people in your district, right?
Sure.
So I actually understand in my district of LA that candidate being more pro-Israel. I understand that
Sure.
actually.
Right.
That to me makes
Sure.
sense because it's
Right.
like a lot of people in my district, their family members still live in Israel. They've got a lot of care and concern about Israel, just like there's going to be, I understand that
Yeah,
actually.
it's like
But
understanding why you have essentially a radical Muslim representative in the Dearborn, Michigan area.
yeah, sure,
That's
right?
who lives
Like,
there. Like.
so I get it, so I understand my district being more pro-Israel and maybe the person taking more
Hmm.
pro-Israel money. Like I understand that it's actually kind of logical. I don't like it because I think it should be America for America, and it doesn't really matter, who we should be representing America. But at least I kind of get it logically. But I don't understand your district, or I don't understand a lot of these other districts, like in Idaho or in Utah or all these other places. It's like why, you know, who are you actually representing? So I feel like in your district, you should be able to be like, I'm for you. Like Mamdani, he gave the best answer when they were like, where are you going to go? When they did the whole primary debate and they're like, what's going to be your first foreign visit? And they were all like, Israel, 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 Israel. And then Mamdani's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm
Yeah.
running for mayor of New York. I'm going to be in New York.
Right.
Like, right answer, right answer, right? So
Yeah.
that should be
Exactly.
the answer for that. For
Yeah.
you, it's like, bring the money back home. Like, I'm not for all that other stuff. I'm for Americans
Yeah.
here in
Yeah.
America.
Yeah. No, especially
Should be
when we're
easy.
we're sitting there saying we don't have the money to continue our government. We're going to shut down. I mean, what are we doing here?
Well, Rob, how can people help you? Rob Lucero, 30 California 34. How can people help you?
They can sign up to support on our website. It's luceroforcongress.com or even roblucero.com will take you there as well. And thank you for having me on. I think what we can do in this new year is change the sense in Congress that we can actually start to get something done, because that's one of the biggest frustration people have, is that Congress is just awful.
Yeah, they
So
don't do anything. They're the most useless branch of government.
they are, and they shouldn't be. The founders, whenever you look at it, they never intended for that to be the case. The Congress was where a lot got going from the very beginning. The Bill of Rights came out of the Congress. You had a very active Congress, and even through the time of Abraham Lincoln, the Congress was respected as the place where the decisions got made and the debates got had. So it's the people's house. I'm hoping that I can mobilize the people in my district to support somebody who will represent the people in the House again.
I hope so. I hope you win. I hope you get it. We'll be watching your campaign and championing you. Certainly, go beat that Jimmy Gomez guy or whatever. Go beat that other guy, whatever his name
Well,
is. Who
let me know
cares?
if he comes on your show to just to explain himself about why he took that APAC money. That'd be interesting.
I'll invite him. I don't know if he'll do it though. I'll ask him, hey, then, but he's not, oh, we don't talk to you. You're like, America first. That makes you an anti-Semite.
Oh my gosh.
Rob Lucero, good luck to you. I hope you win. California needs you. That is for sure. Congress needs people like you. I think even somehow linking up with, like, if you can, like Ro Khanna, he's been doing a fantastic job up in San
Yeah.
Francisco in the Bay
Yeah.
Area, representing Americans in America. And,
Yeah.
he's maybe got a machine around him that maybe can
Yeah.
even help a candidate like you. I don't know how it works. I've never run for office. I don't intend on ever running for office, but I don't know if there's like a way to kind of like get some of his resources,
Yeah.
because he seems to be doing it the right way. And he's one of the best in Congress, in my opinion. One of the few that's actually got integrity and doing a great job. And
Yeah.
we need more.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's good advice. I have spoken with some people in his office and some other moderates in DC already. And like I said, I've talked to some high level Republicans who are very happy that I'm running, and not because they think I'm they just are excited to see what they see as a sensible discussion coming out of my
Yeah.
campaign.
Yeah. Well, and you might get all those Republicans. You might get a lot of Republican voters. Just get them to switch over to Democrat, which is what you kind of have to do if you're in California. You kind of have to. I
Yeah.
mean, vote Democrat, but vote for like kind of the
Yeah.
Democrat that you like.
There's a lot of independents here too, people that
Yeah.
no party preference and so
Right,
on.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's all those reasonable Democrats. There are some of those, right? And they'll vote
Yeah,
for you as well.
and one of the things about Bobby's campaign that Politico referenced was that he was getting people who had never been active or who had been dormant for years back into politics.
Yeah.
People who'd given
Yeah.
up, and we see that in my district.
Great. Well, good luck to you. All the best. Thank you so much for being here. We do have the link down below to your site, luceroforcongress.com, where people can sign up, get to know you better, and good luck to you, Rob.
All right. Thanks so much, Kim. Take care.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.